Big show today, lots to get to, including Iran crushing us, the U.S. at the nuclear bargaining table, leaving only our key ally Israel alone and surrounded by people who want to kill them. And some big storms that may make it harder for you to get home this Thanksgiving. We're going to tell you who's going to get hit and when. But first, more dishonesty from the White House on Obamacare. Americans don't trust the administration, and for good reason. They haven't been straightforward about anything. The New York Times, of all places, reporting over the weekend what we told you about all along. The president's health care law is about taking from one group and giving to another, a.k.a. redistributing. Here's the key quote from the New York Times reminding us what the administration has been trying to hide all along. Quote, the redistribution of wealth has always been a central feature of the law and lies at the heart of the insurance market disruptions driving political attacks this fall. Conservatives like me think he's a socialist, but the president doesn't always see it that way. Here's what he said last week.
I would distinguish between the rhetoric and the tactics versus the ideological differences. I mean, in most countries, you've got, people call me a socialist sometimes, but no, you got to meet real socialists. You'll have a sense of what a socialist is.
He's not a real socialist. He's just a fake socialist.
But he's met Bob.
Bob, come on. This is redistribution. Now the New York Times calling it redistribution.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, that's right. But to call him a socialist is really just obscene and absurd.
But if it's redistribution, isn't that...
Socialism has a lot more to do with that. Socialism. You'd have to... there's a lot about socialism historically that has nothing to do with Obama. But is there redistribution? Of course there is. And that's something that those of us who are on the left believe very strongly about. And so you don't agree, and most people around this table don't agree. But I think that there does have to be, if you're going to take a finite pot of money that's going to be available, and if you want to cover everybody in your country, then you're going to have some redistribution.
Okay, redistribution. You want to jump in?
Well, I want to say that's why I love Bob. Because Bob is not a Decepticon. All liberals, with the exception of Bob, are Decepticons, meaning that in order to achieve their aims, they have to mask their ideology. Whatever you say about conservatives, whether you like them or you hate them, they tell you what they believe in. But for a left-winger to win, they have to lie. They take the sledgehammer of coercion and they slip it in a glove of compassion. That's how they get you. At least Bob doesn't deny it. He says that it's there. The problem with the logic is that you're talking about a finite pot. And that's what happens when you deal with redistribution. Nothing has ever grown. So you're stuck with the same stuff that you got to keep moving around. The conservative says, grow the pot so you never have to redistribute.
And also, maybe you're right, Bob. Maybe redistribution isn't necessarily socialism, but I would certainly say it's a big part of socialism. And let me be fair. Maybe we don't live with a socialist president. Maybe we have a president who simply believes in the welfare state.
Well, I don't know what they're calling themselves. I do think that it's interesting that Bob can have that honest answer here, but the White House, or unnamed White House officials, once again, are on background trying to shape a story in the New York Times saying, no, we're not for redistribution. That's not what this is about. This was about reducing the cost of health care, which, one, it is proving it isn't doing. President Obama said something about trying to take away the rhetoric and then strip that away, and then what do you have? The problem is the reality versus the fantasy on many topics, but in particular on Obamacare. Today, this morning, they had a major delay on the website, about an hour-and-a-half disruption. So if you imagine that you are a mom and dad, or you own a business, and you're thinking, I want to get this taken care of before Thanksgiving. I want to enjoy the holidays with my family. Try to get on a Monday morning, and you can't even get that done. The anxiety that is added to the people's frustration with the government is leading to the opinion polls that have the president collapsing, not just in competence, but in trust. And I think that's where the White House has a very serious problem.
KG, President Obama, it smells like a pig, it oinks like a pig, it looks like a pig, but President Obama wants you to believe it's a beautiful little pony. What I mean by that
is, I think pigs are beautiful, but I think this stinks. And what I don't like is dishonesty, because it really offends me that they think the American people are naive and stupid and aren't going to figure this out. And that's why they have to ban words. They don't want to don't call them terrorists, don't call it redistribution, because they're trying to hide the truth. Be frank. Come out and say exactly what you believe about your ideology and what you think the direction of this country should be. Like de Blasio. he's quite frank about what he thinks should happen in New York. You know, redistribute the wealth. Remember back in 2008 with, you know, Joe the plumber and President Obama saying, share the wealth. Like, that's what he really believes. Own it then.
Fair share, fair opportunity.
But you know, I don't believe that Obama, like me and others, were for a single-payer plan because they kept the insurance companies involved in this. When I say finite growth, what is growing is the cost of health care. That's one of the reasons that people wanted health care reform well before Obama, for good reason, because it was growing and premiums were growing. So at some point, there's only so much of your family budget that can go towards paying premiums. And so you do have to, it seems to me, have to figure out a way to get some of this payments for your premiums and charge you more than you charge a poor guy.
The problem is what it was supposed to do, a.k.a. bend the cost curve down, hasn't done any of that.
But that's the point. That was a flawed premise.
That's because you believe the capitalist system is going to do that. I don't.
Well, either is the socialist system that we're under
Free
right
market
now.
is better.
All right, take a listen to, here's President Obama just an hour or so ago regarding, listen, this guy is so disillusioned, just listen.
So even as we're getting this darn website up to speed, and it's getting better, states like California are proving the law works. People want the financial security of health insurance. And even if you're already insured, reach out to a friend and neighbor who's not and help them get covered.
Okay, so, Bob, I got to go to you again. I feel bad for you having to defend this time and time again. But here's President Obama saying states like California, here's where the law is working. In California, 1.1 million Americans have lost their health insurance. In the same time, 80,000 people have enrolled in Obamacare. How is it working?
Well, first of all, you're being a little careful about that. They have not lost it yet. They're supposed to they've given notice that it's going to be January 1, which means they have between now and January 1 to find either government subsidies to help them pay for it or another plan that they can afford to do it. I don't know whether they're going to be able to do it or not. When he talks about California, it is true that the demand in California for the information about this is enormous, as it is in a lot of places in the country. The problem is they can't get the information they need to have to find out whether it works for them. But yes, it is. I'll get back to this. It is redistribution. It is.
Somebody
and by the way, the White House just cut you off their Christmas card.
But you know, it's not
that
just
happened a long time ago.
It's not just President Obama. It's the media and President Obama who are linguistic cross-dressers. Why do they put on a dress? Because they cannot expose coercive force. Nobody wants it. That's why it's coercive. So you've got to romanticize it as it's good for everybody. They don't tell you that they are taking from this person to give it to that one. It's just that they're getting it. They're linguistic cross-dressers. I'm coining that phrase.
I like it.
Any thoughts on this this soundbite he just rolled about an hour ago?
Well, one thing that is bothering me about it is something that I think that the Obama team has done from the very beginning, which is to pit people against one another. And we talk about redistribution. To me, it's not that people who have a good job and earn a living don't want to pay taxes. Do you want to pay taxes? You want to pay taxes for systems that work. When you talk about reform, it's actually to make things better, to see if you can reduce costs. And we knew, and we were called all sorts of names for saying that this experiment was not going to work. Now that it's not working, not only were you racist or whatever you were before Obamacare passed if you were against it, but now you're also being accused of being selfish because you don't want to pay into a system that's not working. And they're masters of pitting Americans against one another. Very unfortunate, because it's not going to solve a single problem.
No, go ahead, Bobby.
I was just going to say, I think it's time, frankly, to stop talking about the webpage for the power of them. It's my piece of advice. It would be not to come out every day and try to have another, because when they do that, then something else goes wrong, and then you go, ha, ha. But, you know, the progressive tax system is redistribution, no matter how you look at it.
Absolutely.
So if you live under a progressive tax system, what is, and you accept it, I mean, I happen to be for flat tax, but if you believe in a progressive tax system, then you believe in redistribution.
Or you accept it and you don't necessarily think it needs to go as far as the further.
Well, you don't call it socialism.
No, like I said it probably was unfair calling it socialism. I pointed to Dana. I said, is it fair to say the welfare state instead of socialism? There are two different things.
Well, but I don't believe that the welfare. Well, you could say the welfare state, the tax system that's been put together. When you keep talking about 47% of the people don't pay taxes, or 46 or 44, whatever it is, then that I suppose you could say that's part of the welfare system. But I don't believe that's part of the welfare system in a progressive tax structure.
It's progressively getting more and more.
But here's the problem: it doesn't work. We're just getting more and more in debt. It's a flawed system. The framework has absolutely no support structure to it, so it's collapsing by the minute. And it's just really irresponsible for the rest of the future generations to sit here and take it and keep adding on to the debt and more entitlement and more programs and unfairly taxing people who are trying to work hard.
The vast majority of this country is in favor of raising taxes on wealthier people. They are.
Well, if that's the case, why deny
Doesn't
it?
everybody pay taxes?
Why deny it? You've studied as a liberal progressive your entire life to be this person, and you won. So why are you hiding it? And why do you pretend to be something you're not? Why do you mention capitalism as a goal when you hate capitalists?
We're not. By the way, the left is not at all enamored to buy into you guys' notion this guy's a liberal. I mean,
that helps him.
But let's stay on here. Let's stay on what's going on with Obamacare and how the left. Bob, you mentioned left. Let's see how Al Franken, probably one of the more liberal senators. Let's see what he has to say.
I think then we have to consider extending the deadline for the mandate. But let's hope that doesn't happen.
Hope is not a great political strategy. It's not good policy. Hope, it leads to big dreams and little action on the ground. Government doesn't do hope well. No. So I think that you're going to find by November 30th, 6 days from now, the website won't be what they thought it was going to be. They don't know how they're going to measure 80% effective. How do you measure 80%? 80% of what? How will they know?
They'll just say it is.
And it'll just go on. This could go on in perpetuity.
Well, this was his campaign, right? Hope and change.
They want us to get out of here. But one of the things that, Dana, we've talked about a couple of times here is the IRS. The IRS is charged with making sure that you pay the fine or tax. I'm sorry, the tax if you don't have Obamacare. It's $95 or 1% of your AGI. But the problem is they have no teeth. They have no teeth to do it. They can't garnish your wages.
There's no
they can't sell your
enforcement
property.
provision.
They can't take you to court for any of this. This is one of the three legs on the three-legged stool. You pull that, the thing's falling over.
Well, and that's, again, you go back to if we were, let's be honest, let's have an honest discussion here. I don't think Obama necessarily buys into this, but there are a lot of people on the left who believe there ought to be a single-payer plan. Make it all straightforward to be one leg.
I don't want government health care for everybody, because government health care does not do a good job of taking good care of people.
But do you agree that now, with the old system, that there was two brands of health care, those for wealthy people and those for not?
I think it will be even worse under Obamacare, because you have people that will be able to pay for doctors that they choose to have, and everybody else who has to pay for doctors that are left over in the Medicaid system.
It's totally true, and you won't be able to keep your doctor or your insurance.
That was happening very much.
And now there's more uninsured Americans than ever. Nice job.
I mean, when I moved to London, I went to sign up for the NHS. That's their single payer. Anybody who had a salary said you're crazy, and you had these private boutiques that took care of it.
Let's just head here. By the way, you want to talk about socialized medicine? You go single payer. There it is.
I would agree with that, and I have no problem with this. In living in a society that socializes this medical system.
You can head back over to England, where Greg used to come from.
Look at their teeth, Bob. It's not pretty.
We're gonna have to leave it there.
Look at how nice.